All right. Hey, guys. We're the Whiskey Sippers, and you have some friends that are trying to get into bourbon, and you're not really sure what they want, or they don't know what they like yet. Well, we're going to show you 5 bottles each that we think would be a good opening to getting them into bourbon after this.
All right, welcome back. If you like our channel, please subscribe if you haven't, like and comment, and let us know if you got guys who are new to whiskey
Or gals.
or gals, anybody. What is it you introduce them with? What's the bottles that you think that noobs should try out to really get into the the experience?
Noobs.
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 Newbies. All right, there you go.
Here we
Why
go.
don't you start out?
All right. Well, I always thought when I got into bourbon that there were some ones that are pretty good and sweet, and I always thought, man, I don't want to have that harsh burning sensation right away. So I went with the Woodford Double Oaked, 90.4 proof, nice, sweet, refreshing. It just has all that brown sugar, caramel, oakiness that I would like if I was starting out in bourbon. When I first started, I was like, man, put some ice on this. Let me water it down a little bit. No barrel proofs here because this is too much getting into this. But here we are today. So, but Woodford Double Oak was one of my first picks where I was like, man, I want to really get into bourbon and have some sweet stuff. So I think if you have friends or family or girlfriends or whatever, or boyfriends, whatever, they want to get into bourbon, and I think this is a solid offering. Yeah.
You know what? I completely agree, and kind of my first pick is along those same lines. You don't want to introduce somebody like with a heavy hitter, right? Yeah. You don't want to hit them hard because they're going to be turned off by the burn and the ethanol. Yeah. Even they'll never really understand the flavor when they're starting out. So I think you start out with Old Forester 1910.
Yeah,
very sweet and smooth, a great mouthfeel. It doesn't have that burn. Again, it's like that. It's double barreled or whatever. So it kind of is a lower proof and a really good introduction, a really nice sipper. Something that kind of sweet people can get into when they're not used to what whiskey should taste like outside of trying like an old number 7 or a Jim Beam White, which we try to steer them away from and let them know that is not what bourbon is. So
it's like football. You want to, 2-hand touch or like flag football. You don't want to really get into like full contact. So I feel like these are good offerings to get them into that. So, all right. Well, my next one is once you get that bourbon fever and you're really looking for all those rare bottles and trying to get all the cool, tasty, whiz bang stuff that your friends are telling you is really good or really hard to find. As much as I hate to say it, Blanton's. It's one of those bottles that I feel like checks the mark when you finally are getting to that rare bottles. I mean, it's a little bit more expensive, but it's a really cool on the shelf bottle when you have, 4, 5, 10 bottles on your shelf that you're really trying to, have people over and really get into bourbon. It's easy sipper, 93 proof. It might not be one to hunt during your later years or when you have a larger collection like us, but it's still a solid bourbon for the proof and getting into it and the rarity and all that. So
it's a way to suck people in with the collectability of it because of the bottle and the topper and stuff like that. You can kind of draw people in with that. So
just do a there you go. Solid pick right there.
All right. My next bottle is from the same distillery, but when you go away from you're going away from the double oak, trying to get the sweetness and stuff, but you want to get more to that classic bourbon flavor, but you still don't want to go too high proof. Taylor Small Batch.
Yep.
It's a great sipper. It's not too hot. It's got that classic bourbon flavors coming from Buffalo Trace, bottled in bond. And again, it's something for collectability. People want that tater tube. Right?
Gotta love those tater tubes.
Right. So
imagine how many Pringles you can stuff into that thing.
So it kind of checks all those boxes for me. It's still lower proof, so it's not hitting them too hard as you're trying to introduce them. It's got really nice flavors, and it's got some collectability aspect to it and some panache of having that tube and a little bit of rarity.
Yeah, you get to know about Bottle in the Bond, the 1897 Act. You get to collect the tube. It's usually like 50-ish bucks. Even secondary, it's not usually over 100. So like even if you're trying to find that like rare bottle, you're not spending $500 and some crazy bottle you never tried before. So Well, all right, my next one. Well, some of those people getting into bourbon, I know we're on a little Buffalo Trace kick here, but they might like weeded mash bills, weeded bourbons. You have this, Maker's Mark, any of those, Bernheim, any of those kind of distilleries or whatnot. So
the 107 stands out from this.
The 107 really at that 107 proof point, I feel delivers a lot more than these lower offerings or the Weller Special Reserve. It's a good price point, at least in Ohio. It's $58.99. Normally, otherwise, it's like $100. And when you see it on the shelf, that's why you could sub it with a Makers or something like that. But I always enjoy the Weller 107, and I think it's a solid non-rye offering that they can try and see if they like weeded bourbon.
I also feel that once people when they're getting this far into the hobby, when they hear Weller, this is the bottle they're talking about, the antique. Yeah. So,
yeah. And of the other 12-year and full proof and single barrel and CYPB, this is usually the second easiest to find after the Special Reserve. So, yeah.
All right, my next one. So, as I've gone from kind of the sweet entry, more classical bourbon, but still kind of lower proof, now I'm trying to get somebody into something a little higher proof. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to move to kind of the granddaddy of barrel proof to me. Rare Breed, right? It's got that nice sweet and sour with that dusty turkey profile, and you're moving up in proof. Now you're still not too high, right? You're not in the you're not in that 120s and stuff, but you're getting away from that 100 and under. So you're trying to move somebody into that, really appreciating the flavors that come through in a higher proof bourbon.
That oily butteriness on the palate,
And this is a hard one to beat when you're getting into that kind of that range, that mid between 100 and 120.
Especially as a shelf offering at like $50.
Yeah, right. It's not too expensive, not that hard to find, and it's fantastic. So.
Yeah. Well, my next bottle, it's a little expensive, but the Michter's, surprise here, 10-year bourbon or rye. You could do the rye to get them into more of that rye spice and see if they enjoy the rye, kind of like, the opposite of the Weller and the softness of the wheat. But the 10-year bourbon, it was like my bourbon of the year last year, the 23 release. But I feel that it is a really good age, really sweet, kind of like the sweetness of the double oak, but it is just one of the most well-rounded bourbons that I really enjoy. So whenever I have people over and they're just really getting into bourbon, and I know this is one of my favorites, I like to offer that as like hey, you should try this one out and see the different types. And for me, it's really good. So I went with the Michter's 10-year bourbon.
And you're still lower proof with a
94.4,
just more of a mouthfeel and stuff. So
yeah.
All right. Now that I've moved someone up, right, in proof, now I'm really starting to try to hit them.
Yep.
I'm trying to say, okay, now you're starting to really appreciate it.
Here's a baseball bat.
Yeah, let's let's hit a home run. Let's get up there and really try those flavors that we get from higher proof stuff. And my favorite general higher proof bourbon is Jack Daniel's Single Barrel Bourbon.
No way.
No, right? Who would have ever guessed? I'm trying to move them up in that one, over 120. I'm getting up there on those higher proofs. I want them to see those flavors of sweetness and fruitiness and the caramels and oak and stuff like that, and really try to appreciate it. And off the shelf, it's just, as far as I'm concerned, it's just hard to beat.
Yeah.
So.
And you show them that Jack 7 is definitely nothing compared to this, and it's not a Kentucky distillery that everyone's like, Kentucky bourbon.
Yeah, this is the bottle I've used. A lot of people have told me I can't stand Jack because they drank Jack 7 until they try this and they say, oh wow.
Yeah.
I had no idea. So it is not the same thing.
Yep. Well, there's another one. I went with a higher proof offering. I went with Stag. So Stag is usually around that $50 to $60 range, depending on area. We had a release today where they dropped some in Ohio. It's for that price range. It's solid in proof. Buffalo Trace juice. So I know people are looking for Blanton's and Buffalo Trace, and we were like, well, here's a barrel proof offering from the same distillery. And I think if they really want that good mouthfeel, Stag is definitely one that people are trying to get and try. And I went with Stag as a good pick for getting them into that final, hey, here's barrel proof bourbon. Hope you enjoy it. So
I do love Stag. That's probably my favorite offering from Buffalo Trace. So for my last bottle, I've gone, okay, I've moved people up from an entry level into a sweeter bourbon, to understanding a standard bourbon profile, into barrel proofs. It's time to move them into rye whiskey, because I love rye whiskey. And I found a great entry into rye is Sagamore Double Oak. So Sagamore Double Oak is a little bit sweeter, but it still has that rye spice with a little bit of minchiness. Because of the double oak, you're bringing in some of those caramels and some of those other, like you would expect in bourbon flavors. So to me, that's a great entry into the rye realm. Again, it's not too high proof, so it's not going to blast them out.
Yeah.
But it's a great move into that rye profile that I personally love.
Yeah, 96.6 proof.
Yep.
Double oak, so kind of like these like earlier offerings, but then you get that little minty and spiciness from the rye, and it's not overbearing or over dilly or minty. So.
Yep.
Yeah.
So there we go. Those are the bottles
are.
we think that, as you're introducing people into the whiskey world, these are the way to go, at least in our opinion. Let us know what you think.
Yeah, if you have a bottle or something you would swap out with one of these, we want to know. Or if there's something you recommend we try, I'd love to try it. So
or even tell us, what was the bottle that got you started into whiskey?
Yeah.
So, all right. Until next time, the best bourbon or whiskey
is the one you like the most. All right. See you guys.
See ya.